Today we're going to be talking about celebrity real estate. Some people that we've been watching recently online, some people we've been talking about. We just want to talk about how much a real estate is worth, how much money they're making, and how they can afford this astronomically priced real estate. So Max, you're in this field. Let's talk about Charlie Dimiglio.
Okay.
So Charlie Dimiglio lived in a $1 million house, recently moved to a $5.5 million house, and within the last 3 months has moved to a $14 million modern mansion, which somebody like yourself or I can only dream of ever living in.
I don't care about big houses.
No,
personally.
this is the type of house that you would go bring 30 of your friends to on an Airbnb trip to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be even able to afford it either way. Just some facts. She spends $55,000 a month on rent and did not buy the house. I just want to get into the reason why somebody would spend $660,000 a year on a house instead of actually buying it.
First of all, does she pay for it or is somebody sponsoring her family?
So the way I view it is, obviously the whole family lives together. Charlie is probably the highest income earner in the family. Mm-hmm. But Dixie can't be far behind, and the father can't be far behind Dixie. Mm-hmm. So they probably together.
The parents are far behind.
Yeah, well, doesn't the dad have like special deals with like?
I think he's being paid the least.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
he's
not as good of a dancer.
They all have special. I think like Charlie, she has to do exclusive content with Triller.
What I think is, I have no idea what the family arrangement is, but obviously there's some sort of family pool where they, okay, let's buy this house together, let's rent this house together. Or Charlie just makes so much money, hey, Dad, I got the house. Whatever. if your 16-year-old daughter could buy a house for you, I'm down. I don't care. It doesn't even matter. They spend $660,000 a year on rent, and I did some calculations here. If they were to buy a $14 million house, the mortgage would be $60,000 a month, so already more than what they pay in rent. Their taxes would be about $60,000 to $100,000 a year, and then their utility bill, which they still pay now, would be about $20,000 a month, and then their insurance is about $20,000 a year. From my perspective, you have a lot of people like the Charlie Dimiglios of the world who turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to rent this $15 million house because I'm actually going to save $300,000 this year. The conventional real estate practice, there's hundreds of videos about this. People argue, should you rent or should you buy? And my argument is always, I think you should rent until you actually have the money that you can afford the house, right? Because what happens is that you don't understand when you actually buy a house what like the sunken costs are of a house. In rent, the only sunken cost is the rent. When you rent something for $2,000 a month, the sunken cost is $24,000 a year. When you buy a house with a mortgage of $2,000 a month, your $2,000 a month is not technically a sunken cost because it goes into your equity, but then your maintenance, which is roughly 10 to 15% of the mortgage of a year, right? And then your taxes is a sunken cost. And what happens is it winds up being on a yearly basis twice as much as what you would have spent just renting. It's hard for people in like the normal world who say, nah, I'm not going to rent. It's not worth it. But when you look at it from a perspective of $15 million and it saves you $300,000 a year, somebody like Charlie Dimiglio, when your financial advisor goes, hey, I have a way to save you $500,000 this year, and it's to rent instead of buy, you're going to listen to him. The next big thing about this, right, and talking us versus them type of thing, super famous, super rich versus us, is why do you need so much house? So we're sponsored by 15 August Co. I don't have a script for it. I just want to show off how beautiful the candles are. The company just started, right? So if you have any inquiries for 15 August Co., they sell luxury candle brand. It's a luxury candle brand that sells candles that have like a cologne or a perfume scent, right? It's supposed to set the mood. So if you like candles, just give us a call, DM us, and we can hook you guys up.
Yeah, so it looks like 15 August Company, the Seduction Collection, Him, does smell like cologne. Coconut soy blend, handcrafted in New York.
All natural, so you don't have to really worry about any carcinogens in the house, right? Obviously, there's going to be some sort of flame, right? So there's nothing you can do about that. But there's no smoke, no soot, and it burns beautifully.
Where can they buy it?
Right now, just go to 15 August Co. Instagram, and you can send your inquiries in the DM.
15 August Co. Instagram?
Yeah, 15 August CO.
Disclosure, he is related to the person who owns the company.
Disclosure, I own part of the company, so it's okay.
Okay.
So what's your take on having a big house. Is it a dream of yours to have a big house? Do you want to build your own house? Do you want to just buy, or what do you want to do? Do you want to rent?
So one thing that's really cool, I do have a social media brand that's growing really fast that's in the luxury real estate space. I'm super excited about it. I really want to end up being like Ennis, the real estate guy on YouTube, where I do like these amazing tours of houses, and I want to be like Daniel Mack, who does tours of like beautiful cars. So I love like affluent things. But for me personally, I do not want to live in a big house, but I love and appreciate big houses because it's like from afar, because to me, affluent things motivate me to be better. When I see like a clean, beautiful, granular home, it's just like, wow, I love that. It looks beautiful. It inspires me to work harder. Like when you just see like pictures of like Dubai or like Boca Raton, you just see like these beautiful affluent places. It's just like, that's where all humans could strive to go for and stuff like that. It's just like really inspirational from afar. Like me personally, I don't want to live in a big house. Like I want to live in the smallest home possible, respective to the size of my family. So like if there's like 5 people in my immediate family, then I would have master bedroom, maybe 1 or 2 offices, and like 1 room each for my kids. But I don't want any bigger than that. The smaller an area or an office is, the more it psychologically promotes collaboration and good relationships. If it's too small, it'll promote bad relationships because like it'll get people in each other's business. I like small areas because I think houses that aren't too big or too small is like healthier for the family. It gets the family closer together. If you live in a huge mansion, it minimizes the aura of the family. Or like in an office, if an office is way too big, people are going to be way too far away from each other. What's the point of having a big office and everybody distant? Just work from home. I love this signaling of affluence and stuff like that. Like I love seeing huge skyscrapers and stuff like that. I would personally want to live in I have a very minimalist mindset. So I love luxurious and affluent things, but I love things that are luxurious and minimalist. That's like my number one favorite thing. I dress very minimalist, but I also have a gold chain. I like watches, but I like a watch that doesn't have diamonds on it.
Like a Movado.
Yeah, I would wear like a Submariner, like a black and gold Submariner without diamonds on it. A great watch that's like perfect for me. So I like things that are minimalist yet luxurious. I think you're this way too. So that's like my vibe. If you look at our set, I do think like it's like high-end-ish. We have like great art, everything's clean and good looking, but at the same time it's super minimalist. Yeah, it's so for me, my formula for like a home, an office, or anything of the sort, even a podcast set, is minimalist yet affluent. I love very high quality, luxurious, affluent things. So like spas, tropical resorts. So tropical resorts and spas are affluent, but they're extremely minimalist.
Logan Paul just recently moved to Puerto Rico. I thought he bought, but he's renting a $10 million mansion for 5,000 square feet for $45,000 a month. Why would Logan Paul move to Puerto Rico to spend $45,000 a month? Does it make financial sense to rent, right? We spoke about it previously. Other than the tax benefit, which I think we should still talk about. So the house is worth $10 million. It's on Dorado Beach in Puerto Rico, and he pays an HOA fee of about $10,000 a month. HOA, for people who don't know, is a homeowners association fee. And basically what happens is you get a community basketball court, you get a gym, you get a pool, you get probably a cleaning service, a landscaping service. You get a lot of homeowner perks for that $10K a month. But before, I guess, we talk about why he went there, my biggest take on Puerto Rico in general, right? So let's say Logan Paul were to buy this $10 million house. Logan Paul would spend about $100,000 a year on property taxes, which is the normal American salary if you're in the top 10%, right? So imagine that on your property taxes. And then he would pay in his mortgage more than that $45,000 a month. So he's actually probably saving money on rent. Moving to Puerto Rico, we discussed this briefly before, right, with taxes in general. But let's say Logan Paul made $20 million last year. If Logan Paul makes $30 million this year, and he saves even 10% on his tax bill, that's $3 million. So this kid could rent 5, 10 of those houses before it even mattered for the amount of money he saved moving to Puerto Rico. What's your take on it?
How much money do we assume Logan Paul makes?
I assume, not including the Mayweather fight, 20. With the Mayweather fight, 30 million.
Do you think he makes 30 million a year? Okay, let's assume he makes 25 million a year.
Before we go, hold on. How much do you think he made on the Mayweather fight? He made at least $6 million on the Mayweather fight. If that's his biggest earner for the year, then okay, maybe 30 is high, but 20 is a very easy number. Because think about it. You're one of the most well-known human beings on the planet. So people are probably paying you 10 to 20, maybe even $30,000 a month someone like Blue Chew, he does 5 podcasts a month. If he says, hey, buy my Blue Chew every week, they're paying him 10 grand a podcast. No.
More.
Yeah, exactly. So think about that. Just one sponsor could be anywhere between 50 and 100 grand a month.
I don't know, but let's assume he makes 20 million a year. So in Puerto Rico, ideally, you pay 44% tax rate. Ideally, he's probably going to pay more because he has businesses set up in the States. So like, let's say his tax rate averages out to about 15% of total income. That's about $3 million a year, instead of paying $10 million a year in the States.
Exactly.
So he's saving a fortune. The $45K a month he pays is nothing. He's saving way more money than he's gonna lose out on. But to me, the most important thing is, his most expensive thing is time. For him, the mind share he gains from not being distracted in Los Angeles is huge. So like in Puerto Rico, he can peacefully write scripts, direct videos, organize his thoughts, not get bombarded by paparazzi, and box, which is his biggest moneymaker, is boxing. So he can peacefully focus on boxing, versus in Los Angeles, you got this, you got that, you know what I'm saying? So like, if he wants to, he can easily go to the, first, like, I don't know how he operates, but just going to LAX, or like the airport in Los Angeles alone is probably a headache. So just like, I can't imagine how peaceful the airport in Puerto Rico is. You know what I'm saying? So like, all the time and the mind share he gets back in Puerto Rico is huge. And probably just think about the traffic alone. So the traffic alone in Puerto Rico is probably way less. What he's saving biggest on is time. I think Logan Paul will be a billionaire. An hour of his time is worth freakishly high, maybe $5,000 an hour, extrapolated over the course of his life if he becomes a billionaire. So if an hour of his time is worth 5 G's, he is saving so much time in a place like Puerto Rico. Granted, he does lose time if he wants to meet somebody or connect with somebody, but let's be straight. You could Zoom anybody or FaceTime anybody in the world. You don't need to be with them directly. If he needs to record a podcast, he'll fly people over, or he'll fly to LA. It's not a big deal. But the mind share is where he's really winning. For me, the type of house I want is a minimalist yet affluent home. So I love minimalist luxury. For me, my ideal home is going to be like 3 bedrooms, 1 for me, my wife, and for the 2, 1 for each kid, 1 home office, no pool, no sauna, no gym, no backyard, no big front yard. I don't want to have to worry about lawn care. I don't care about lawns. I don't need to maintain a big garage. I don't need a big driveway. I don't need a lot of cars. I prefer to Uber.
My advice, I'm going to make it funny here.
Yeah.
Don't tell your future wife about these house plans before.
That's fine. My future wife will understand the person she's marrying. I'm very career focused, and I don't want these distractions. So similar to Logan Paul going to Puerto Rico to minimize distractions, I want to minimize distractions for myself. If I have a sauna in my house, I'm going to spend an hour a day in the sauna. It's healthy, but I don't really need that. I'd rather go to the gym and do 1 hour a week in sauna. I could have a big gym and a tennis court, but I don't need that. I'd rather have a small, tiny gym that only has compound machines, so I don't have to waste time doing silly, non-effective workouts. I just have my compound machines work out for 30 minutes and dip, because that's all you really need to get jacked. You just work out 30 minutes a day, super focused. I want a home that lets me focus on my career, and I think that's the main reason why Logan Paul went to Puerto Rico, for mindshare, peace of mind, not to waste time in traffic, not to get distracted by nightclubs, etc. Imagine if you went to Miami like a lot of these influencers. My God. Can you imagine how distracting Miami is?
So there's one fact actually about Logan Paul's house that kind of just blew my mind away. When I do my real estate work and we do our comps, we kind of do it based on the area, based on the houses that were sold in the area. But like a good indicator of what a house should be worth is not just what the house sold for, it's, hey, what did that house sell for per square foot? So Charlie Dimiglio's new house, we spoke about earlier in the podcast, is worth about $1,500 a square foot, roughly 8 to 10 times the going rate of a price per square foot in New York right now in Staten Island. Not New York, but in Staten Island. Logan Paul's house in Puerto Rico, you would think would be less. That house is anywhere between $1,900 and $2,000 per square foot, which is ridiculous. And I think, to be fair, the reason why somebody with money like that goes to a house that is actually probably one of the only places in the world where you get a house more expensive than in LA, right? Because Puerto Rico in general, probably the real estate's not that high, is because there aren't many people who are going to go buy a $10 million house in Puerto Rico. So people probably money grab Logan Paul, right? I mean, Logan Paul didn't buy the house, but the person who bought the house probably bought it at $1 million and probably is running away with cash in his pocket, right? I just thought it was crazy that it's actually 25% more expensive there in Puerto Rico.
So he's basically living in Billionaires Row of Puerto Rico.
That's what I was thinking.
So he's literally living in El Dorado, which is like literally means like the city of gold.
Yeah.
So like his neighbors are like Oprah, and like his neighbors are
That's
ultra
true.
high net worth entrepreneurs, and those people, they want to live in areas where it's extremely expensive to live. So people who live in places like El Dorado, they want to live in places that are very expensive because it creates membership. It creates a lack of access. So you want to spend extra money and live in places where your neighbor is a billionaire. You know what I mean? Because then it creates this VIP environment around you. It makes it extremely hard for paparazzi to waste mind share, to waste your time, to take photos of you, stuff like that. So like the point is to go to places like this and live in places that's expensive, hard to reach, VIP, hard for paparazzi to get into, hard for criminals to get into, stuff like that. The whole point of places like El Dorado is to be expensive because you want to go to the cafe or restaurant nearby. All around you are like multimillionaires and high-level politicians and etc. That the whole point of places like El Dorado is to be expensive.
Going back on your point where you were saying before about Logan Paul, you thinking becoming a billionaire, we can talk about the Paul brothers in general, right? I noticed this in my own life, and I'm pretty sure you noticed it as well, and it doesn't happen on purpose, but the more money you make, the more people who make similar amount of money, if not more money than you start to hang around. And it might be to that point now where the Jake Paul and the Logan Pauls of the world, where you hit that double-digit $1 million a year mark, now you're in that exclusive club of people who actually do have billions of dollars. And you're at the bottom. You're at the very bottom of that totem pole, which is the top of the top of the top of any other totem pole financially. But when you're Logan Paul and you have $20 million and you can hang out with the likes of Oprah Winfrey, even though Oprah won't really give him the time of day unless necessary, when those people are around you, that's when you become a billionaire, right? That is, and he knows that too, right? You don't snap your fingers and you become a billionaire, but your mindset will definitely change, right? Even more so to that wealth mindset.
Yeah, exactly. The point of these places is not to pay a lot of money. The point is to pay a lot of money because other people can't pay that money. So like, the security is going to be good. Your neighbors are going to be like high-level politicians and businessmen and business people. So that's the whole point. The whole point is not that you're spending a lot of money. The whole point is it's hard for other people to spend that much money.
It's like an extremely expensive lifelong networking event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's you're paying for the network, the exclusivity, the membership, to go to a nearby restaurant and be around people that are very like quote unquote high level, stuff like that.
So talk about high level individuals that actually didn't wind up spending that much money on their house, even though the houses are bigger and nicer. Let's talk Conor McGregor's real estate. Now, Conor McGregor's real estate is not just, hey, that one house that you live in, right? Conor McGregor is not in the same league as Charlie D'Amelio and Logan Paul in the amount of money he makes every year. So you're looking at me like that, right? And when I say that, and this is why I'll explain. Charlie D'Amelio, let's say even she makes more money than Logan Paul, right? Probably. If you put Logan Paul at $20 million a year, Conor McGregor, like reported income, like through Forbes, is like 40 to 50, even $60 million a year. And that's something that like you could definitely put your hand on, and that's not anything extra, right? Like they know he makes $5 million from Reebok. They know he makes $10 million.
You're saying Conor McGregor makes more than that?
Way more.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
He's not in the same league at all.
Oh,
yeah, he's not. Yeah.
You said it as if Charlie and Logan were out.
No. Yeah,
Okay.
no. Conor McGregor is not in the same league in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Conor McGregor was actually much smarter, in my opinion, in the way he bought real estate, right? Just like very high level. He doesn't have one $10 million property. He has three $2 to $3 million properties, but in exclusive areas of the world, right? He has one in Las Vegas in a gated community with guards 24/7. You can only get in unless you know him. The only way you can get in is if you're training him or if you're married to him. He has a mansion in Spain on the beach that has a house. The house is directly next to Cristiano Ronaldo. And then his last house is the one that he lives in Ireland, which is basically on the top of a mountain with land surrounding him, and you can't get there unless you hike there. Conor McGregor, from a real estate perspective and loving real estate, I had so much fun researching his real estate, right? Let's go on the dollar per square foot perspective. He has a 12,000 square foot mansion in Las Vegas worth under $3 million. His house is literally almost 3 times the size of Logan Paul's house, and he paid 1/3 the price. $250 a square foot. Exactly. So you're looking at these influencers who can do their work from anywhere, buying houses for $10 million so they can flex and say, I got a house in LA for $10 million. But the guy who's making the real money has a house only 3 hours outside LA. That's 3 times the size. So the good thing about his estate, you can say, is that it's actually extremely close to like Las Vegas, the Strip, right? Where like he'd be fighting any day. From my perspective, this gorgeous mansion that basically has his entire team live in it. Nutritionist lives there, his coach lives there, his friends live there. Arnold Schwarzenegger goes to visit, right? Like these people, it's exclusive, right? The good thing about it is that, I don't want to be redundant, is that it is exclusive, right? Like Charlie D'Amelio's house is not exclusive. You could technically ride a car up the mountain and go knock on the doorbell. This man is paying less money, gated security, he has a home gym, he has the sauna, he has that huge pool and has that jacuzzi, right? So I guess we can say that there are different ways, right, to focus. So maybe this guy wants a jacuzzi so he can relax, right? He wants a huge pool so he can throw parties. But you bet that he is not throwing a party when like he's training, you know? What makes him stand out, right? Like his real estate, just looking at his real estate, you can tell that he's got a bigger brain in his head, right? He gets more bang for his buck. What does Conor McGregor do that these people don't do?
Their careers are very different. So first of all, he absolutely needs to have a home in Ireland. That's his main home. And second of all, like if he didn't have a home in Ireland, he'll be the biggest hypocrite of all time. So that Ireland home is an absolute must. I can't imagine real estate in Ireland being that expensive. So, you know, real estate in Ireland is generally cheaper. There's a reason why he has more bang in the buck there, because it's in Ireland. Ireland isn't like a New York or LA real estate, obviously. Number 2, his Spain home is probably just like a place to be near, like people like Cristiano Ronaldo.
It's a vacation home.
It's a vacation home, but it's also a networking home.
Yeah.
And then his Vegas home is a requirement because his main career focal point is Vegas. That's like the fighting capital of the world. He needs to be in Vegas. It's extremely strategic. So he has a vacation home, which is in Spain, but the vacation home is still a networking. The Ireland home, he absolutely needs to have an Ireland home. And the Vegas home is where his career is. So like the Vegas home makes a lot of sense. And also Vegas real estate is relatively cheap. Here's the thing, people outside of Vegas or outside of America, you might think like Vegas is this like dense city. It's not. Vegas is like 95% empty. Or
desert.
Like desert. Nevada and Vegas, they're very empty places. People might think real estate in Vegas is really expensive. I would guess that the real estate in the Vegas Strip is relatively expensive. But in Vegas, in Nevada, it's not expensive to live there. Like the real estate is relatively cheap compared to other popular cities like LA and New York. It makes a lot of sense. It's not that expensive. Like Vegas isn't the type of, it's not that dense. So like obviously supply and demand.
A good example of somebody who really opened my eyes. So like my family is in Arizona, right? They got a house that's 50% larger than what they had here in New York for 1/3 the price. Another like influencer that opened my eyes, right, on top of just knowing in general, right, was Graham Stefan. Graham Stefan has a huge mansion that he spent literally $1 million on.
It's a big mansion, not a huge.
It's roughly 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. So huge by New York suburb standards. And it's $1 million. $1 million gets you maybe 3,000 square feet where we live. And the house is gorgeous. It's just another world. If you could work from home and be an influencer or create content, you're moving to Arizona or Vegas, because the cost of living versus how much money that you make. Because if you make money in New York as an influencer versus you make money in Vegas as an influencer, it's the same amount of money. Mm-hmm. It's not like a construction job where I'm going to get paid 40% more. You go there and the cost of living is 0.8 the national average, and the housing market is 0.5 the national average. You're a king. And Graham Stefan is already a king, right? But now he's living large like no one else.
One more added benefit of living in places like Nevada and Arizona is that way cheaper taxes, way cheaper real estate, way more peace of mind, way more mind share, way less traffic. You can still take advantage of high networking neighborhoods or high value neighborhoods with like other high value people. There's a lot of, wealthy people that live in Vegas and Phoenix. And most importantly, if you work in the internet sector or the social media sector, you're an influencer, you are literally 2 hours away from Silicon Valley in Los Angeles, or you're like very close to Silicon Valley in Los Angeles still, yet you don't have to deal with the cons of living there, the extremely high taxes, extremely high real estate, all the distractions, the pleasures, the vices in places like Los Angeles and Silicon Valley. So you can live peacefully and cheaply with no income tax in places like Nevada and Arizona, but still be very close to hotspot areas like LA and Silicon Valley.
So let's stay on those two topics of privacy and paying an extreme amount of taxes because you refuse to leave LA. So David Dobrik, he has a $9.5 million mansion, which I just learned previously in the last 20 minutes that he is moving out of. Beautiful, contemporary, modern basketball court, movie room, podcast studio, 6 bedrooms for, I have no idea who's sleeping there, 7 bathrooms because he's really got to go, 7,800 square feet at a very modest $1,200 a square foot. So he's the first homeowner. Out of everyone in our group, he's the only one during today's podcast that actually bought the house. So he takes on a nice hefty $120,000 tax bill, $20,000 insurance bill, and roughly $20,000 to $30,000 a month in utilities. That $150,000 to $170,000 a year extra on top of his, not really mortgage, right? Because I guess he bought the house outright. So that $150,000 a year, is that worth the privacy, right? So I guess David Dobrik moved the original time. His young audience, the group of 13 to 22-year-olds, decided it was good to knock on a stranger's door. How much is privacy worth?
I think that David Dobrik, before the controversy, was scheduled to make between $10 to $15 million a year. So I'm not sure how bad the controversies affected him, but he was on that slate. So if you're making $12 to $15 million a year, $12,000 per square foot isn't much. It's definitely worth that privacy because they were getting hounded in that old house. This beautiful new house, one, David loves living with his friends, so there's way more room for his friends to live in. Number 2, there's more privacy. Number 3, the grandioseness of a mansion like that is extremely good for his vlogs. Having a house this big is like a huge way to signal how popular he is, which will make him more popular. It's like a lightning pole for clout having a mansion that huge. Same thing like Dan Bilzerian did with that huge house that he also left in. I think there's many reasons besides just privacy. So David could have easily went somewhere else and had privacy, but he picked this one because it's a clout magnet, a big house like that. He gets to live with more of his friends, which is very important to him. And also, David loves Los Angeles. He doesn't care about saving money on the income tax. He doesn't care about saving money on the square footage. When David Dobrik first moved to Los Angeles, he literally moved inside Hollywood. Those star sidewalks, like that's where he went. Like he's the type of person that likes to be in the party. I don't think it was just a privacy. He wanted to be near Hollywood, wanted to have a lot of room for his friends. But it's not that privacy is important to him. I think what's important to him is not having people invade his house. So I don't think he cares that much about privacy. He cares about not being invaded.
Well, that's what I was going to say from like a privacy type standpoint. When you're David Dobrik, so like David Dobrik has a way of making vlogs that basically says, hey, I am not private. He does things in such a grandiose way. When I watch it, I think I'm hanging out with my friends. So I think he makes everyone also believe that, and people are somewhat deranged enough to actually think that they're friends. Hey, this guy doesn't mind going crazy, and I see him walking around on the street all the time in his videos, so yeah, let me just go say hi to him. Everyone deserves privacy, right? Everyone deserves to not have random people knocking on your doors. I think David Dobrik kind of like, not does it to himself as in like he deserves it, but it's his style. His style is to be open, right? So like when people want you to be open and you're not, it's rough, right? For sure.
Yeah, I think the main point of the house isn't privacy. Like if he wanted privacy, he wouldn't buy one of the biggest houses in Los Angeles. I think his point was protection.
All the YouTube videos that I'm watching, I mean, you can probably find it out. There's probably a public record of like addresses, right? But the YouTube videos I watch about his house are like, hey, don't share his address. Please don't share his address. If we really wanted to know where he lived, we don't need to look at his YouTube video to find his address, you know?
I don't think, again, it's protection, not privacy. Okay, but to round it off again, guys, sponsored by 15 August Company, like an amazing candle company, co-owned by Peter. Guys, this is amazing stuff. Check out 15 August Company on Instagram. Peter, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so just very quickly to wrap up today's podcast, 15 August Co. was founded by my mom with the help of myself and my family. It's not for me to talk about really, but I will just say the whole purpose of the brand is to basically enjoy your time with your spouse. You know, like these are scents that will remind you of who you're with. It's a cologne scent. There's a scent like a day at the spa. You know, it's like a nice soapy, lemony scent, and one that's a woman's perfume. And to be honest, this men's perfume, I've had people smell it and just go absolutely bonkers. If you like candles, visit 15 August Co. on Instagram, DM them, and we can get you some orders.
How much does it cost?
So it really depends on what you're ordering, right? This one that I have in my hand right here, it is an 8-ounce candle, and it doesn't sound large, but we've tested it. It'll burn roughly 30 hours. This one will cost $20. So you basically get a little bit more than an hour for every dollar that you spend. We have a bigger one that costs $30 that burns for roughly 40 hours. You're paying basically for this lovely look that you can basically put on any table and it'll just attract anyone.
The coolest thing is the casing. The casing is really durable, so you can literally just, after this candle is done, you can probably keep this thing as like a container.
For sure.
So you're like buying 2-in-1. Guys, check out 15 August Company on Instagram. If you're buying candles, why not this one? They're handcrafted, made in New York. Guys, check them out.
Thanks for watching.